Hi, my name is Jackie, and I am going to be walking through the Alternative Fueling Facilities Program application with you. On the first page of the application, you're going to find some general information as well as the detailed instructions on how to submit your applications and some links to videos if you need assistance with that. Please make sure you read through this page as well as the entire application before submitting your application. Some important dates to note on the first page. The program opened on January 23rd, 2024, and the deadline to submit your application is March 22nd, 2024 at 5 o'clock p.m. Central Time. On page two, we begin the portion that you fill out of the application. So this is section one. The first thing you're going to do is enter the legal name of the entity applying for the grant. This must match your W-9 form. On the second portion, you have your ownership or business type. Everyone will need to fill this portion out. So on the first portion, there's a drop down box where you can select which one of these you fall into. Every business other than an individual or a sole proprietor will need to fill out the federal employee identification number. Individuals and sole proprietors will need to fill out the social security number. It is important to note that all business entities, such as corporations or partnerships, must have an active registration with the Texas Secretary of State no later than January 23rd, 2024, 5 p.m. Central Time. This registration must remain active for the contract period. The next portion is regarding small business. The first question is, does the applicant qualify as a small business? Everyone will need to answer this either yes or no, so please select the one that applies to you. If you select yes, please go through the checklist below and check all that are applicable to you that identify you as a small business. And please make sure you include documentation as an attachment to the application that shows how you qualify in that area as a small business. The next portion is where you will pick your authorized official, and this is an applicant or employee who has legal authority to sign for and speak on behalf of the entity. If you're an individual applying, you would put your individual information here. Please make sure you fill this out in its entirety. It is very important that we have phone numbers and email addresses to contact you. Email address is the primary way that we reach out to people. Um, Whenever we're working on the contract or any type of information. If we are not able to reach someone through email, we will follow up with a phone call. So please make sure that all of this information is up to date. On the next portion, you will select a designated project representative. This can be the same as the authorized official, but it does not have to be. This is the person who will serve as the point of contact for this application. Your first question is going to be, is this designated project representative the same as the authorized official? So you will need to select either yes or no. If you select yes, you do not have to fill out this information again if it's the same person as your authorized official. If it is a different person, you will need to fill this information out in its entirety. Section two, this is the third party preparer signature page. The first portion, was this application prepared by a third party? You will need to select either yes or no. If this is being prepared by a third party, then section two will need to be completed. If it is not, then you can move on to the next section. On section two, this is where the third party will provide all of their information. Again, this needs to be filled out in entirety. Make sure that none of the areas are left blank. Um, Down here at the bottom, there is a third party preparer's signature and a date that will need to be signed and dated as part of the application if a third party prepared it. Please note on the signatures that if you are using an electronic signature instead of a type signature, fill out the application before signing electronically. Once you sign electronically, it will stop the ability to edit, add, or remove information. So make sure to do that in all areas at the end after everything is fully filled out. Section 3 is certification of eligibility to receive a state funded grant. So every applicant must complete this section to certify if they are eligible to receive a grant under this program, even if child support obligations do not apply to that applicant. Um, It is very important to read the certification regarding child support obligations and the Federal Privacy Act notice. Please read through those in their entirety and then select the following applicant option. If you're an individual or sole proprietor, if one or more individuals own 25% or more of the business entity, if no individual owns 25% or more of the business entity, or if it is a governmental entity. So please select the appropriate one for your application. If you select option 1 or 2, please list the names and social security numbers of those persons below. And whenever you sign page 10 of this application, that is certifying that you are eligible to apply for this grant and receive a grant through the state. The next portion is general certifications. This has a lot of information in it that you do need to know. Please make sure you take the time to read through this completely. And on the next portion, it is program certifications. So with this portion, we are asking, is the applicant the owner of the property that they are planning on building on? So everyone will need to answer this first question. Please select either yes or no. If the applicant is not the owner, then the person who owns the property will need to be filling out this next portion completely regarding where the site where the equipment will be installed. The owner is stating that they do understand that they are consenting to the installation of the proposed facility on this property, and they do agree to keep the proposed facility in operation and service for a minimum of 3 years after installation. And again, there's a signature and date area here. Uh, Whenever the applicant signs the form, they are certifying that they will purchase and own the grant funded equipment during the contract period, um, and that any sale of the grant funded equipment during the contract period will be subject to approval and consent to assignment by TCEQ with contract terms. You are able to purchase and lease the equipment to another entity as long as the applicant maintains ownership of the grant funded equipment during the contract period. Section 6 is application score tie-breaking provisions. In the event of a tied score, the following information may be used as tiebreakers along with small business qualifications that you completed in section 1.3. These are in no order of preference. Please select all that are applicable and include any supporting documentation as an attachment to the application so that you can receive credit for this. So please read through these carefully and make sure you do provide that supporting documentation. Section 7 is the proposed project information. So with this information, all grant funded fueling facilities must be owned, operated, and maintained by the applicant within the clean transportation zone. This is listed in Appendix A of the RFGA. And they must own and maintain this for the duration of the grantee's 3-year usage reporting requirement. Leased equipment is not eligible. With an application, an applicant may only include one alternative fuel type per application submission, with the exception of a combination of CNG and LNG projects. Projects that will be adding a new alternative facility to an existing facility will need to apply with a new application. So first, please select the fuel type from the drop-down box. So select which type you are applying for. Next, have you previously received a TERP or Texas Volkswagen Emission Mitigation Program or TexVIMP grant for this site? Please select either yes or no. If you were awarded a contract, please provide the contract number. Have you applied for or received another grant for alternative fueling at this site? This includes federal grants as well. So please select either yes or no. If you have, please describe what type of grant. Next, advise how many fueling or charging ports will be available at this site. And then as far as types of the facility type and hours of operations, we do consider a public facility to be one that is open and accessible to the public for a minimum of 8 hours per day between the hours of 8 a.m. and 6 p.m., at least 5 days a week. A private facility is considered private if the general public's right to access the facility is restricted in any manner. So please select if you have a public or a private location. And then for public facilities, please indicate the hours of operation. So if it's 24 hours, you can select that box. If you're open at specific hours and closed at specific hours, or public's rights are restricted during those hours, please go in and put the specific hours for each day. Next, you will put the actual physical location of the proposed project. Again, please make sure to fill this out in entirety. On the latitude and longitude, please make sure to do that number in decimal degrees to a minimum of 5 decimal places. So there is an example here for you to look at, but please make sure to include that as well. The next portion is a site plan. The applicant must attach a site plan, including a scaled map. This can be a photograph, a satellite map, drawing, a similar type of graphic, and this is going to show the planning and design of the facility. It must demonstrate how the public can access the facility. This includes driveways, access points for public roads, and it needs to include the 4th mile area around the proposed site and show the locations of any amenities that you do list in the application. On our TERP website, there is an example. This is an example site plan. It is under the AFFP information. So where you go to get your application and look at the RFGA, this is on that same page. And this is just an example. So you can see it has the arrows of how you get it in and out. It shows the amenities, all of those different things. And then there's some others, other examples of a charging setup and things of that nature. So the next portion is ownership documentation. Um, You must demonstrate the ability to install, operate, and maintain the refueling infrastructure at the proposed site by providing documentation. This includes property ownership records, lease agreements, um, or other legal agreements that can show that you have the ability to complete any required construction on the proposed site. And you also have the ability to operate on the proposed site for the duration of the contract if awarded the grant. Please list those project details in the space provided. If it does if the project does expand existing infrastructure, please include that information as well. Um, the next portion is going to be amenities. Please fill out this section if you have amenities on site or within 1/4 of a mile. And it does give you the option to select whether it's on site or whether it's around your facility. At the bottom, there is a space that says other. So if there is an amenity that you have that is not listed, please select other and then go to the space below to describe that other amenity that you have. Also, if you have amenities that do not currently exist, please include definitive documentation with the application that shows the type and location of the future amenities. On section 8, we have the project budget categories. Please make sure you list all expenses by budget category, including a description of each line item and its purpose for the project. If you do have questions on the eligible project cost, please look at section 3.2 in the RFGA for the descriptions of the budget categories. If an eligible cost is shared between multiple fuel types, please only list it once. Any cost incurred prior to the program opening date on the cover page of this document will not be eligible for funding. And please do add additional pages as you need to. Also, if you have any other financial incentive that is received for the project, such as tax credits, deductions, other grants, or other public financial assistance, the grant reimbursement amount plus the financial incentive amount cannot exceed 100% of the total cost of the project. And you will need to identify anything else that you have received in that request for reimbursement. So just go through this portion and list out your budget cost, and it will allow you to select the category as well as the estimated cost. At the bottom, once you've completed everything, you will enter the total eligible project cost. For fueling infrastructure or refueling infrastructure projects, sorry, applicants must submit with the grant application an estimated budget outlining the eligible project cost. So you're going to go through this section and the categories that you had before, you will list the totals for each category here, and then you will select the total eligible project cost. Next, you will put in the grant amount that you're requesting for a CNG or LNG project. It can be up to 100% of eligible project cost or $400,000, whichever is less. If it is a combined CNG and LNG project, 100% of eligible project cost or 600,000, whichever is less. For any fuels other than natural gas, 50% of the eligible project cost or $600,000, whichever is less. N- Next, this is your signature page. So the authorized official is going to fill out their information, sign and date, and this is stating that they are agreeing to the statement here and that the information that they have provided is true and correct. Um, so again, if you're using an electronic signature, this signature will need to be the last thing that you do. Otherwise, you will not be able to fill in any other areas. And then the final page is going to be your application checklist. So please make sure that you look through this. You make sure you have completed all parts of the application. You have provided all of the necessary attachments. Um, and in the attachment checklist, there is a link here that will take you to the W-9 form. Every application must have a completed W-9 form and it must be signed. So that is the end of the application. If you do have any questions, please note here on this first page that we do have our email address and phone number provided. Thank you so much.